Previously, in the moon of the spider. Here, another birth would very soon take place. The birth of his eventual domination over the rest of the world. Since Aldrich Jitten had attained the artifact, his sleep had instead been filled with lusty visions of his rule. No. All he really needed from Selene Nesardo was her heart and her blood.
Raise it over your head as if a crown.
The arachnid pattern on the artifact began to twitch. The foremost appendages moved until they touched where the fingertips of the noble held the spear. Aldrich Jitten silently commanded,
"Open for me! Shall we enter, my lord?"
Again, the moon of the spider lay nestled in his arm. This made a clenching motion, and each pile crumbled to dust.
No, you need not worry, my lord.
Area once more, then the necromancer followed. Selene, expression still blank, trailed the rough mane.
With only a small portion of the gifts of Astrogah. Imagine, my lord, what you will be able to do when the spider god's full wondrous power imparts you.
You are a fount of wonder, spellcaster, murmured Sardak, his eyes wide. Zayl returned, fingertips still touching those of the fabled beast. Perhaps you might say that I released it from a curse. From the nook of the necromancer's arm, Humbart's hollow voice suddenly piped up. I prefer to keep my adventures to the taverns, thank you. This is far too much excitement. As fascinated as his companions were by this encounter, what interested Zayl far more was the overwhelming coincidence of the creature finding him again. They were far from where he had last encountered the fur giant. More to the point, there had been no reason for the Night Howler to even be looking for him, much less coming to his aid at such an opportune time. As a devotee of Rathma and a servant of the balance, Zayl did not believe in pure coincidence. Sardak asked the question that was likely on all their minds. So, now what do we do with it? The skull was indeed correct, and Zayl was surprised that he himself had not previously noticed. Sardak was not impressed by Humbart's knowledge. Well, I say again, now what do we... The rest of his question was cut off by the Night Howler himself, who, with a series of grunts, pointed in, started off in that direction. We are to follow, the necromancer declared. Follow that? What about Selene? I suspect that we will find her at the end of the Night Howler's trail. The other human kept his weapon aimed at the giant. It better not be a beast larder we find. As they moved on, Zayl's thoughts shifted from the creature's propitious arrival to Clyde's trap. The other necromancer seemed prepared for him at every turn. Crypts had not only expected Zayl to follow, but had known by what method and where best to arrange his attacks. Yet conflicting desires seemed evident in the traps. Both the malevolent force that had pulled Zayl from the cell and the legion of undead had clearly sought to make him part of whatever they were. Crypts, though, had made it quite clear that he preferred Zayl removed from the equation entirely, one way or another. There's something going on up ahead, remarked Humbart from his arm. can sense it. Can't you, lad? Yes. The night howler added a few grunts of his own, then pointed up the hillside. Zayl and Salene followed him there, and from their vantage point, they saw the entrance to where had been Caribitis taking Selene. Zayl eyed the stone sentinels with foreboding. They surveyed the rest of the entrance. Around the opening, several of the grotesque man-spiders scurried across the rock face and trees of the forest, all obviously keeping watch for intruders. Are we too late after all? Sardak asked, his sword hand shaking. Zayl looked to the sky. Believe not. The day is only giving way to the night. I think that they must wait for the moon to be in a certain position. Still, the time is surely growing short. The other human started forward. Then let's get going. It was the Night Howler who pulled him back, the huge paws lifting Sardak up with surprising gentleness for a creature previously so bloodthirsty. He set the struggling swordsman down next to Zayl, then gave Sardak what could only be described as admonishment. Try not to be so foolhardy, added the necromancer. We must wait for a better moment, when their concentration cannot be turned to us without deterrent. But they must know we're coming anyway. Surely those monstrosities we fought were turned to report their failure. Why wait? Best we go in with weapons ready. They won't be expecting the audacity. He was desperate to save his sister, and Zayl hardly could blame him. We will find another way. Of that, I can promise you, Sardak. But what? At that point, the Night Howler grunted, pointing to an area on the opposite side of where Selene was being held. Not quite certain, muttered Humbart. I think he's got an answer for us. He was not the only one, either, for as the creature began leading them in the direction, Zayl thought very carefully about the ways of the Rothmanians, and how even Caribitis might think him in one place when he was in another. Caribitis stiffened. He looked over his shoulder at the entrance, gaze narrowing. Lord Jitten caught the action.
Something? The trap was sprung, but the prey escaped. Which means that the Zayl is on his way. How did he escape so many? Is he bringing a military force from the city? No. It would not work that way. I cannot ascertain what actually happened. There seems a confusion spread across the minds of the survivors. A necromancer spell. You told me about it. Surely you can break it.
Caribitis frowned.
It is not a spell, just a general confusion.
The gray-haired Rothmanian sniffed.
And absolutely nothing to concern yourself with, my lord. We shall expect Zayl to come, and when he does, he will be dealt with. Like he was supposed to be in Westmarch?
Asked Aldrich, looking up from his inspection of the altar.
By Cornelius? By those dead cultists?
The necromancer did not look perturbed by yet another attack on his abilities by Aldrich.
Cornelius still has his part to play. It was because of him and our erstwhile Edmund that the trap was sprung by the Zekrom. That the church failed to act swiftly enough when they knew that there was a Rathmanian among them is a failing of their own. They were warned that he would be dangerous. Cornelius also has made certain that General Torion has focused all his attention on Zayl.
Caribitis cocked his head.
All in all, I would say that Cornelius has actually done very well for us, my lord. As you put it, I suppose so. You got a labyrinthine mind, sorcerer. I'd hate to play chess with you. I wouldn't know whether I was winning or losing.
The noble glanced at Selene.
So, is it time yet?
In response, Caribitis snapped his fingers. Selene immediately walked over to the altar and, as if settling down in her bed for the night, calmly and readily lay back on the stone structure. Sheathing his dagger, Caribitis withdrew from his belt one of the cult blades. It had been this that he had been searching for when the Lady Nesardo had made her timely appearance. Caribitis had seen it as a sign that his work for the balance was destined to succeed. Several of the nobles' transformed servants stood up into positions surrounding the altar and the ritual participants. They looked eager as Aldrich.
The power will soon be yours, my lord.
The necromancer intoned.
Power and a legion of followers at your beck and call. All in one fell swoop.
From within the Rathmanian's cloak emerged his eight-legged familiar. The huge arachnid climbed up to Caribitis' shoulder, perching there. Aldrich raised up the moon of the spider expectantly. As it lifted it above his head, the artifact began to glow.
There, my lord, you see, it is the beginning of the first phase. Got her already, then. Patience. There are words to be spoken first.
Moving to the opposite side of the altar, Caribitis held the sacrificial dagger over Selene's prone form. He glanced up once at the artifact, then, seemingly satisfied with what he saw, started muttering. The only word that his companion would have recognized was the name Astrogah. From the transformed servants, there arose a low but steady hiss. A chant by the children of Astrogah. The parasitic spiders atop the head of each seemed to watch the necromancers work with growing anticipation in their inhuman orbs. Caribitis brought the dagger down. The cut he made on Selene's throat was a tiny one. Superficial at best. It drew only a few drops of blood, but the Rathmanian seemed quite satisfied. He made certain that the tip of the blade was bathed properly, then stretched his arm toward Aldrich. The noble lowered the moon of the spider just long enough to let the bloody tip touch the center of the arachnid pattern. The legs on the image twitched.
It is pure,
declared Caribitis.
It is the blood of Astrogah.